Google Podcasts adds a privacy warning. The latest from Podnews.net with Podpage. Build a beautiful podcast website in 5 minutes. A content warning and privacy notice has been added to the Google Podcasts app in multiple languages and territories. The app is a top 5 podcast player, according to most podcast hosts, and the message makes it clear that Google doesn't host content. Stories from Sky News in the UK, the Brookings Institution and others have highlighted content issues in podcasting recently. The company already blocks some podcasts from under 18s and people not signed in. The message also, curiously, highlights that IP addresses are passed through to podcast hosting companies if you play an episode. Now, that's also the case when you click on a website in Google Search. So we've asked Google why it's there and what's so special about podcasts to merit this unnerving warning. Spotify has shut down its original podcasting studio, known internally as Studio 4. 15 people will be either moved to other roles or made redundant. Described as a junk drawer by one staffer, the division produced the shows that weren't produced by Gimlet, Parcast or The Ringer, which Spotify purchased later. Shows don't appear to be cancelled, though. Amazon Music Podcasts has more than 200,000 podcasts and 55 million customers, according to a podcast creator outreach document being shared by the company. We link to that today. It says that you'll also be able to track your download numbers in their dashboard soon. There's been an awful lot of content partnerships announced. Cadence 13 has partnered with Dana Carvey and David Spade for a new weekly podcast series called Fly on the Wall. Slate has signed a multi-year strategic agreement with Forever Dog, a comedy and culture podcast publisher. PRX has announced partnerships with Magnificent Noise, Wait What, and Skeptoid Media to distribute and monetize their shows. AdLarge has signed Honeydew Me, which hit number 1 in Apple Podcasts this week. And Global's DAX has signed How to Fail with Elizabeth Day. Brené Brown is the first guest in a new season today. And Acast has launched a new campaign to inspire creators to start their own podcast called First Words. And in podcast news, Hello Sunshine and iHeartMedia have launched Time Out, a Fair Play podcast today, hosted by New York Times best-selling author of Fair Play, Eve Rodsky, and physician Dr. Aditi. The show invites listeners to learn how to take back their time with science-backed solutions, humour, personal insights and practical tips. And Gold Medal Loser with Lolo Jones is the latest podcast from Blue Wire. Sponsored by Discover, it looks at the career ups and downs of major celebrities across sports, entertainment, fashion and music. Lolo Jones is competing in the Winter Olympics US women's bobsled team. This podcast is brought to you by Squarespace. No, it isn't, and for a good reason, because podcasters need websites built specifically for them, which is why this podcast is really brought to you by Podpage. A Podpage podcast website is automated. It's got follow links, an Apple Smart banner, good-looking links for sponsors, a list of your reviews, episode pages, and media players. They're built for sharing too, so I'm pleased to share that you can get started with Podpage now for free. Just visit podpage.com/podnews. And that's the latest from our newsletter. For all the links, we're at podnews.net.